The man just swallowed a blue pill to prove that he is still alive. Unexpectedly, he just locked his wife's hands with handcuffs, but because he was too excited, he suddenly had a heart attack and died on his wife's body on the spot. Lisa, who was scared, quickly used her feet to lift her husband up, but her husband had no movement and accidentally fell to the bottom of the bed. Lisa, who saw the scene, was instantly scared to death because her hands had been locked with handcuffs and she couldn't go down to check on her husband's injury. At this time, she thought her husband was joking with her and kept calling her husband's name, but soon the blood flowed all over the ground. Until then, she realized something was wrong, but there was no one around the suburb villa on the top of the mountain, and soon the sky gradually darkened. Looking at her husband moving on the ground, Lisa was in deep despair. But unexpectedly, at this time, there was a sudden noise at the door, followed by a shadow slowly approaching the door. Until the shadow walked in, Lisa found that it was a stray dog. Not waiting for Lisa to react, the wild dog walked towards her husband's body. Obviously, the wild dog smelled the smell of blood and came here. Lisa was in a hurry and tried to drive the wild dog away, but the strong smell of blood kept the wild dog from leaving. Seeing the wild dog bite her husband's arm, Lisa struggled desperately. Fortunately, she found a book on top of her head. Without further ado, she threw it at the wild dog. Looking at a piece of meat in the wild dog's mouth, Lisa was scared to cry. But unexpectedly, at this time, her husband suddenly climbed up from the ground. This moment made Lisa excited, but the next second she found that her husband's body was still on the ground. Not waiting for Lisa to react, the other husband reminded her how to save herself. In the end, Lisa put the hope of escape on the handcuffs. She bit her teeth and pulled out the handcuffs on her right hand. She quickly got out of bed and broke the pillar on her left hand. She thought she had finally escaped, but when she turned around and looked, she found that she was still tied to the bed. It turned out that what happened just now was all her imagination. There was no way. Lisa had to try to save herself in other ways. Looking at her phone, she put it on the bedside table. She immediately wanted to bring the phone over, but because her legs were too short, she couldn't reach the phone at all. In this way, time soon came to the 6th hour of being trapped. At this time, Lisa was tired and thirsty. She thought that her husband had just finished his medicine and seemed to have put the water cup on the roof of the house. Lisa thought of a good way in an instant. She saw that she first grabbed the board hard to make the board tilt. Then, while the water cup was sliding to the right, she used her right hand to hold the water cup in her hand. However, when she was about to drink water, she found that the water was too close to drink. Realizing that this cup of water was her life-saving water, Lisa immediately calmed herself down and put the water cup back on the roof of the house. Looking at the wild dog lurking under the bed, Lisa also noticed that if she was thirsty, she would definitely become a wild dog's dinner. Finally, after a while of thinking, she suddenly thought of the pajamas on her body that her husband had just bought. At that time, the tag seemed to be placed on the roof of the house. As expected, after a thorough search, she successfully got the tag of the pajamas. In order to successfully drink water, Lisa directly rolled the tag into a straw and then took the water cup with her right hand. This is considered a sip of water. However, since this cup of water is life-saving, she must not drink it all at once. After drinking 2 sips, she put the water cup and straw back in their original position. Until then, the tense nerves were relieved, and she should have been too tired to sleep. But I didn't expect that at this time, the wild dog at the door suddenly became vigilant, and then ran out in a panic. When Lisa opened her eyes, she was scared to death. There was a strange shadow in the room, and the box in the shadow's hand was full of jewelry. Seeing this, Lisa quickly closed her eyes. She prayed that the shadow was her illusion. But at this time, her husband said that shadow could be the god of death. At this time, Lisa's feet suddenly itched. She looked down and was scared to death. She was so angry that she kicked it. But this also instantly angered the wild dog. For this reason, Lisa had to kick again. This is how she got out of danger. But she knew very well that the wild dog would attack her again. But now her hands are tied by the handcuffs. How can she escape? Tired, Lisa closed her eyes. Again, in a trance, she found herself back to her childhood. At that time, her hand was accidentally pierced by glass. She was so scared that her father quickly used gauze to bandage his hand. Thinking of this, Lisa suddenly moved, which means that the blood may have the effect of lubrication. In order to verify her inner guess, she decided to risk her life. She had to ask for help as soon as possible. Otherwise, she was likely to fall into a coma. When she saw the wild dog still sitting at the door, Lisa slowly took off the water cup on her head. Then she smashed the water cup into pieces, and her palm was also smashed by the pieces. But this little blood can't lubricate at all, so she had to put the pieces on the roof rack and cut her wrist with force. As the blood flowed all over her wrist, Lisa used all her strength to break the handcuffs. Finally, she got the cell phone on the bedside table. But when she was about to call for help, she found that the power was not enough and the phone was turned off. There was no way. Lisa had to go to the other side to unlock the key to the handcuffs. But the right hand of the seriously injured could not move at all. There was no way. She had to put the key in her mouth. Then she could open the handcuffs smoothly. The first thing she did when she opened the handcuffs was to go to the bathroom and pour herself a few drops of tap water because she was very worried that she would pass out because of dehydration. Then she simply treated the wound. She planned to drive to the hospital, but she didn't expect that when she saw the car key, she would fall to the ground. When she woke up again, it was already late at night. There was a wild dog biting her. She was so angry that she drove the wild dog away. Then she stood up and got the car key. She thought she could finally drive away from this ghost place, but she didn't expect that there was a sound behind her. Then a shadow came from the corridor. The wild dog and the strong man were afraid and hid to one side, until Lisa walked up and found that the other person was the very strange bald man before. At this time, he was no longer timid, but slowly walked forward and handed the diamond ring in his hand to the other person. This is how he managed to hide for a while. He thought it was safe to drive away, but when he was about to leave, his husband's illusion suddenly appeared in front of him. It was like saying goodbye to Lisa. He didn't have time to think too much. Lisa quickly drove away from here, but because of the excessive blood loss and too tired, his spirit suddenly panicked. He also saw the strange bald man the next second. An accident happened. A loud noise shocked the residents nearby, and as people came out of the wooden house, Lisa was also saved. And when Lisa woke up again, he was already in the hospital, and the right hand of the seriously injured was also treated better. Although Lisa's life returned to normal soon, the man, who was like a dead god, made her live in fear every day. So she often had nightmares at night and thought the dead god would kill her for the rest of. Unexpectedly, when Lisa was reading the newspaper that day, she found that the dead her life god actually appeared in the newspaper. It turned out that the strange man was not a dead god at all, but a tomb thief with obsessive-compulsive disorder. He likes to collect some jewelry. Now he is being tried in court. Until the moment he saw the other party with his own eyes, Lisa's inner fear was finally released. Lisa slowly walked out of court and ran to her new life. The film ends. At the end of the story, here, the film of the Gilode game tells the story of a couple on a vacation in an isolated villa. They originally planned to throw a game of villas. Unexpectedly, the game went out of control and the husband died. He left his wife alone to face the fear of the heart and the threat of the outside world. On the surface of this film, it is a story of survival in a desperate situation, but in fact, it is a story of self-rescue and getting rid of psychological shadows. Thank you for watching the video. Please do subscribe.